For 20 years, Jed Thompson had lived alone on his sprawling Arizona ranch. The sun rose over the dry plains, painting the sky in streaks of gold and orange. Sagebrush swayed in the wind, and the mesas in the distance cast long, silent shadows. Jed had once been a cowboy of note, roaming with cattle and chasing storms across the open country. But now his hair had turned silver, his back ached, and his heart had grown accustomed to solitude. His days were predictable. He would rise before dawn, check fences, feed the cattle, and ride Duke, his old horse, across the endless stretches of land. In the evenings, he would sit by the fire, a mug of black coffee warming his hands, listening to the lonely call of coyotes. Life had been hard, but it had been his own. One late afternoon, as Jed hammered a fence post near the edge of his property, a cloud of dust appeared on the horizon. At first, he thought it was a herd of cattle, but as it drew closer, he saw 5 women walking slowly, their clothing worn and torn. 3 small children clung to their skirts, their eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Jed instinctively reached for his rifle, but the sight of their weary faces, the desperation in their eyes, gave him pause. The tallest woman, with streaks of gray in her hair, stepped forward. Her eyes met his, steady but pleading. "Sir," she said softly, her voice trembling, "we beg your mercy. We have nowhere to go. Our homes have been burned. Our husbands are dead. We are widows, 5 families now reduced to nothing." Jed studied them carefully. He could see the exhaustion etched into their faces, the hunger and sorrow they carried. Part of him stiffened. He had lived alone for decades and knew the burden of strangers. But another part of him, long dormant, stirred. Memories of his own losses, of friends and family long gone, pressed against his chest. 5 widows, he muttered, almost to himself. "On my land, that's a lot of mouths to feed." "We can work," the woman said quickly. "Cook, clean men, tend to the children, anything. We just need a safe place to survive, please, sir." Jed lowered his rifle slowly. His throat tightened. "All right," he said gruffly, "but rules are rules. You pull your weight. You stay out of trouble. And you don't touch my whiskey." The women's relief was immediate, like the first cool rain after a long drought. The first weeks were hard. The ranch, accustomed to Jed's quiet solitude, suddenly buzzed with activity. The widows Ayana, Nita, Kaya, Liliui, and Chinoa set to work immediately. Ayana took over the kitchen, baking bread over the fire and preparing meals from meager supplies. Nita and Kaya helped with the cattle, mending fences and feeding the animals. Liliui cared for the children, who were wary at first, but slowly began to smile. Chinoa organized the house, cleaning, sewing, and making the place livable again. Jed found himself watching them in a way he hadn't watched anyone in years. He noticed the way Ayana's hands moved deftly as she kneaded dough, the soft lullabies Liliui hummed to the children, and the fierce determination in Kaya's eyes as she repaired broken fences. His world, once dull and silent, was now alive with laughter, chatter, and the rhythm of shared work. Evenings became a time for stories. By the fire, they would recount tales of their past, of lives interrupted, families lost, and traditions that refused to die. Jed listened quietly, feeling something he hadn't felt in decades: hope. Life on the ranch was not without trials. One night, a pack of coyotes descended on the herd, hungry and desperate. Jed grabbed his rifle, shouting warnings, while the widows ran alongside him, driving the animals to safety. Ayana, despite her fear, held a torch high to scare the predators, while Nita and Kaya herded the frightened calves. Liliui carried the youngest child to the house, ensuring safety, and Chinoa helped repair a broken gate in the chaos. After the danger had passed, Jed felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with survival. These women, once strangers, had become a family. They had risked themselves, worked alongside him, and shown courage in the face of fear. For the first time in decades, he realized that life could still surprise him with goodness. As months passed, the widows transformed the ranch. They planted a small garden that flourished under their care, raising vegetables and herbs. Chickens clucked contentedly in a new coop, and the children laughed as they chased them across the yard. Even the house, once bare and silent, became cozy and warm, filled with handmade quilts, mended curtains, and the scent of fresh bread. Jed's heart, long hardened by solitude, softened. He began to care deeply for their well-being, worrying about illnesses, injuries, and the harsh desert winters. He shared stories of his own past, of cattle, drives, and long nights under the stars, and in return women shared tales of Apache heritage, survival, and strength. One evening, as they sat around the fire, Kai nudged Jed gently. "You're smiling, Jed," she said softly. He grunted, embarrassed, but couldn't deny it. He was smiling. He laughed deep and hearty, and the sound filled the ranch. Winter came harsh and cold. Snow dusted the mesas and icy winds swept through the valley. The widows gathered firewood, tended animals, and kept the children warm. Jed noticed something remarkable. The women, despite all they had endured, carried resilience, hope, and courage. They had found strength in each other and slowly in him. Jed himself began to heal in ways he hadn't imagined. Loneliness, which had been his constant companion, was replaced with connection. Responsibility shifted from mere survival to nurturing life. He learned the subtle joys of watching a child chase a rabbit, of seeing a garden bloom, of hearing laughter fill the quiet halls of his ranch house. One chilly night, as snow fell silently, Jed found himself sitting alone on the porch. He watched the women and children huddle by the fire inside, voices mingling in song and laughter. For the first time, he didn't feel the ache of loss. Instead, he felt gratitude for the chance to protect, to guide, and to share life. Once more, at BY Spring, the ranch was thriving in ways Jed never thought possible. The garden blossomed, animals multiplied, and the house had become a true home. The children ran barefoot across the fields the women tended, their daily chores with quiet joy, and Jed, once a solitary figure against the vast desert, stood at the heart of a new, vibrant community. The bond between them was not one of blood, but it was strong. Jed had learned that family was not always born. Sometimes it was chosen, built slowly, through shared hardship, compassion, and love. On one particularly warm evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert in shades of orange and gold, Ayanna approached Jed. "Thank you," she said simply. Jed's eyes softened. "No, it's I should be thanking you," he replied, voice quiet but sincere. "You brought life back to this place. And to me." And in that moment, surrounded by laughter, warmth, and the scent of wild sage, Jed realized something profound. The desert, once lonely and harsh, had given him a second chance at life. The retired cowboy who had lived alone for decades had found family in the unlikeliest of circumstances. 5 widows, each carrying their own burdens of grief and loss, had become the heart of his home. And in return, Jed had become their protector, their friend, their anchor. The desert wind still howled across the plains, but now it carried the sound of children's laughter, the hum of work, and the quiet strength of a heart reopened to love. Jed Thompson had been alone for 20 years, but no longer.